Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to things rich kids had in the 1980s that you wanted. I'm trying to think back, I say think back, think about this era, this decade, and all I can really put my head towards is, I guess, consoles. I don't know what, I'm thinking like Nintendo 64, but I don't know when the Nintendo 64 was made. I feel like that was a bit later than the 80s. Sega maybe? Is it like the Sega Mega Drive or stuff like that? I mean, I'm just thinking about consoles. Obviously, there's a lot more. Obviously, you're not going to have like phones and stuff. And I mean, I guess you'd have, I don't know, like if you're a teenager growing up in the 80s, what sort of things would you be looking for? Maybe like stuff to listen to music. I don't know what they're called, like recorders or whatever. That's definitely not what they're called. Um but just sort of a portable thing to listen to music. I think that would probably be like the big thing from this time period. But we're going to see. Hopefully you're going to enjoy. Links are in the description to my Patreon where you can see reactions that I can't post to YouTube. And let's see what the kids from the 80s, or the rich kids, got to enjoy.
The 1980s was a time when everything was changing. Some kids always seemed to be on the cutting edge of technological advances and fashion trends, and they always seemed to have expensive tastes. We all grew up knowing someone who had it all. It might have been one particular friend, or maybe it was just a random kid who was spoiled rotten. So let's take a look back at some things that meant you were rich during the 1980s.
Okay. For me, when I was growing up in the 2010s, I had a friend who was so damn spoiled. He got to go to like all because he was a football fan. He got to go to all the football games. He got like all these like sport memorabilia. He had like, I mean, to me this was cool. He had his own console where he'd be able to get all his games that he'd ever want. He had it very good. He used to go on holidays all the time. And he didn't turn out the best child, to be fair. He actually turned out pretty bad. But yeah, I just remember him like having all this stuff, and he was so spoiled. And we were friends at this point, but there were like times where he was so spoiled. Like he would throw his stuff, like he'd be playing football out. His dad would come there. It'd be in an argument with him. He'd throw his phone that he's just got. Yeah, he always had new phones, like the new iPhones and stuff like. Bro had it good, and yeah, he turned out pretty poorly, but obviously it depends on the person and stuff. But I just remember him always thinking, God damn, you're so lucky, and yet you're so ungrateful for it. But maybe there's probably pros and cons to that sort of stuff.
Some larger, more affluent houses during the 1980s were equipped with an intercom system that allowed family members to communicate from across the house. Yelling was how it was done in most homes.
That was a thing? Jesus.
But for a 1980s rich kid, an intercom system was how they were beckoned down for dinner.
Oh wow, what, so you just have it in each room?
Having your own dedicated phone line was a classic rich kid perk, but couple that with the coolest novelty phone, and you were the envy of the neighborhood. Maybe it was a Garfield phone, or maybe it was one of the clear phones that lit up when it rang. But either way, it was cool, and you knew you were from a fancy family in the 1980s if your phone was cleverly disguised as something else. Recollection Road is proud to partner with Legacy.
Securing that bag, baby. Get that shimoni.
When it came to bundling up in the 1980s, there was only one type of jacket to have. If you wanted to show off, you had a little money. London fog jackets shielded you from rain, snow, and the jealous stares of peers as you arrived at school. These jackets came in a variety of styles and colors, but the only thing that mattered was that large tag that showcased the name London Fog. It was one thing to have a finished basement, but if you had a basement bar, then you were rich.
Basement bar.
It was even better if the mini fridge was kept stocked with Sunny D or ice-cold sodas. Often you may have found a pool table down there too, which really amazed friends. It was like a real-life Cheers right in your basement.
This would be a cool basement to have, to be fair. I mean, having it like set up with like some arcade sort of games. Your consoles set up, like an area to watch all the sports. You got like a dartboard, you got this, a pool table. Yeah, that would be like the ultimate man cave, man. You got like all your drinks here at the bar, all the food you want. Yes, please.
And meant you were living the high life.
A lovely sofa or couch.
There were many different brands of jeans that could be worn during the 1980s.
Surround sound.
Levi.
Sorry, I'm just like imagining how cool that would be. Anyway, let's go back.
Many different brands of jeans that could be worn during the 1980s. There was Lee, Levi's, Bugle Boy, and Jordache. But if you walked into school wearing a pair of Guess jeans with the upside-down triangle logo on your back pocket, you were letting everyone know you were a member of an elite group.
My girlfriend loves a Guess pair of jeans, usually to buy and sell. But I wouldn't have known this brand if it wasn't for her, to be honest. But
Guess jeans advertised on MTV and in fashion-forward teen magazines, with beautiful celebrities pushing their denim. So they were an obvious choice for the rich kids. If you peeked inside the fridge at a friend's house and saw the likes of Grey Poupon in the door, then you knew they were on another level. You knew the commercials for sure, but probably had never tasted the specialty mustard yourself. There were also other signs that your friend had money. And if you opened the freezer and saw a Viennetta ice cream cake, you knew. The ribbons of ice cream just looked expensive, and it made the Neapolitan block of ice cream at your house pale in comparison. Did you know someone who wore multiple Swatch watches at the same time?
was this seen as being a rich kid?
If so, then they were probably one of the rich kids.
This is flexing back in the day. Just these watches, just multiple on your wrists.
The colorful and eye-catching plastic watches were big sellers in the 1980s, and many of us had one, but it was saying something if you sported 2 or 3 of them on one arm.
God damn.
If you think back to the 1980s, having a VCR was still a pretty big deal. You could record movies off the TV and watch them back whenever, but the real power play was having a library of bought VHS movies next to the TV. They didn't just rent movies from Blockbuster. They had so much money, they bought the tape outright. During the 1980s, if you had a collection like this, you were living a good life.
The high life.
For some of us, having a piano in a formal living room meant you were pretty rich. This also meant that you had someone living in the house that was sophisticated enough to play the thing. It was even more impressive if it was a grand piano with the top propped open. When it came time to go school shopping, did your mom take you to the local discount store, or were you lucky enough to head off to the mall for a day of shopping? Mall stores always had the expensive and trendiest looks. Not only could you stop by boutique stores like Merry-Go-Round, County Seat, and Foot Locker, but you could also shop at large department stores like Dillard's, Macy's, and JCPenney. Speaking of shopping, remember those collared shirts with the little alligator or polo player on the chest? Kids flaunted their wealth by wearing Lacoste and Ralph Lauren polos in the late 1980s.
This is what my friend used to wear, the one I was speaking about as well. He used to have all these branded clothes like Lacoste and Ralph Lauren. He would just get all these nice clothes, and I'm just here with the same clothes from 2 years ago. I used to be very jealous of him or envious because he would be like that, and then he'd have all this stuff, and then he'd just act so bad about it. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that this is the sort of clothing now that you'd sort of view in the same kind of way, although more people will definitely have it because I assume it was a lot more expensive in these times.
These were just the kind of shirts you would buy at the mall, and although they were perfect for a morning tennis lesson, they were also a classic school look for many well-to-do kids. Most of us had a standard heavy wooden console TV sitting in our living room in the 1980s, but all of us dreamt of a big screen TV. These weren't quite the same as we are used to today, because they still sat on the floor encased in wood, and they had larger projection screens that were the top of the line during this time. Some even had a drawer that pulled out to expose the projector, and a 50-inch TV was as big as you could get.
That's quite big, but...
Do you remember when you discovered that they made refrigerators that dispensed both ice and water? It was probably when you were visiting a friend's house, and instead of them going over to the sink faucet, they stood in front of the fridge and filled up a tall glass of ice water, which left you jealous and wide-eyed. Not only did they have a new fancy fridge with French doors, but they also had an automatic ice maker that meant they never had to fill up ice trays. And they always had cold water, which just tasted like the lap of luxury. During the mid to late 1980s,
Jordans.
basketball sneakers were becoming a popular way to flaunt your riches, and there was no bigger shoe than Air Jordans. A pair of Jordans would set you back around $100 during the 1980s.
In these times, that's crazy. That's got to be like what? With inflation, that's got to be like upwards of what, $600 now? Maybe not. Maybe I'm overestimating the inflation, but that seems very expensive for those times. I mean, these shoes cost a lot now, and they're still very popular now. But $100 for 1980s seems really. I mean, again, they're expensive shoes, but seems very high.
And that's why most of us were still wearing Converse sneakers. As each new Air Jordan was released, it was interesting to see who would actually show up to school wearing them. And you can bet there were plenty of kids oohing and eyeing over them. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything.
Do love a pair of Jordans. Is that it? Oh, we're going on to the advert. Come on, secure that bag, baby. I always enjoy seeing these, just seeing how different sort of, I guess, just sort of, like, there's the same video for the 70s, and then there's the same for 60s, and there's the same for 90s. I like seeing these differences and how it changes over time, because a 2010s video, you're going to be able to have pretty much all of these things for just any average kid, really. Obviously, it depends. Still, some will not have it good, and I didn't have it great when I was growing up, to be fair, but like Viennetta ice cream, I had that when I was younger. I'll be honest, I didn't even like it. I've not had it since. And I love ice cream. The clothing stuff, yeah, I see that, to be fair. But like stuff like the TVs and stuff, obviously that changes over time. Having a phone in your room. I mean, now you've got a portable phone that you can do whatever you want with. But I always enjoy seeing these. Hopefully you did as well. Hopefully this gave you a bit of nostalgia. And yeah, let me know what you want to see next time. But until then, peace.